Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course, you good old boys from Africa. Thanks for following with the Big C Tribe. But you know we love you in Canada. However, there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we've been hunted up down here because we got another weekend of college football coming up. And when you think about this week, the Commander-in-Chief Trophy is being played for.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's the Army-Navy game that's coming up, which has always been a symbolic game in college football.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the prestige and esteem of the top 10 teams in the country, Charlie.
No.
But what these young men play for is something that's holy and resounding.
Yeah.
Because these are future leaders of America, whether it's in politics, whether it's in the military. And they sacrifice something every day that no other American can think about, Charlton.
Yeah.
They play college football for the purity of the game.
Yeah.
But their lifelong mission is to serve this country, Charlton.
Yeah, they definitely do that, and we are grateful for their service, especially on a beautiful December the 7th, 2017, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And we all know, no matter how you feel about whatever's going on in the world, we do have the ability to feel safe in that because we have a great military. We have a lot of people all over this great country that will put their lives on the line because they love service. And I just want to say all of our prayers and our thoughts and our thanks go out to them and their families for all the great work that they do in keeping this country safe. Big C, I do want to say this segment sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Big C sent you. Big C, I was thinking Cadillac needs to come up with a new slogan for the 2018 Cadillac. You know how they'll have the limited edition, it has more leather and it has, maybe a little bit more horsepower. They need to come up with the Big C edition, that Big C on the Cadillac grill. What would you think of the Big C on the Cadillac grill for the new and improved Cadillac, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they might have to go with that all-terrain vehicle if we look at that. We might have to put some studded tires up on the Escalade, Charlton, to show people that it's luxury in the mud as well as in the street.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it's just a beautiful, luxurious vehicle, Charlton, that everyone in America that owns one and around the world enjoys driving it. It is the standard of luxury when you come to SUVs.
Oh, yeah. I still wish that one of the ladies I know out here in California that drives one, she's always trying to show off how it can park itself. It's kind of nervous when you're sitting there and you're watching this car. She don't have her hand on the steering wheel. She's trying to show off how her car can park itself. And it might run into my Benz, Big C. I don't know if I want to trust it that much, Big C, but it hasn't hit it so far. But I do.
Well, Charlton, a couple of times I wondered how the thing ended up in the car because I know I woke up in the car. I just didn't know how it got parked, but now you indicated me something about my own vehicle. It's on its own. It don't need me.
Well, that brings up a big point. I think Warren Buffett talked about it before. We have these self-driving cars. What do you do if you get pulled over because the computer, the artificial intelligence, they call it AI, what if that takes over and doesn't listen? You know how a dog don't listen once you feed it, Big C? And you call it, they say, why you calling me? I already ate. What's going to happen when cars don't listen to people? How will the judge approach that, Big C? Who gets the ticket, the car or the person?
That's going to be an interesting stance, Charlton, when you talk about the computer system in the car. What if it doesn't shut down and disengage?
Yeah.
And you have a law officer following you and you go further than what he expects for you to go.
Yeah.
What would be the defense, not just in court, but with him, Charlton? Are you running from the law enforcement officer?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of significant things that people don't put in, to a total evaluation of AI.
Yeah.
When they put it into play. I mean, it's becoming status quo in day-to-day living around the world.
Yeah.
But, how much human factor will be involved with the AI? Because these things are, if they're that intelligent to park a car with sensors, there's going to be times when they say, I don't feel like slowing down.
Hey, you know how sometimes people they get tired of listening to the boss, or sometimes You know, kids get tired of listening to their parents sometimes. The parents don't want you to hang out at midnight. Well, that's the boss. Yeah, it's supposed to be. But you know how kids are always, they might want to scam against the parents, thinking if mom and dad go to sleep, they won't know when we get outside of the window and do some bad things. Imagine when cars start doing that same thing and they don't want to listen to us when we tell them where to drive and park in reverse. That's always something to keep our eye on. But speaking of things that don't want to listen, and sometimes you get rewarded for not wanting to listen. Now, I know Baker Mayfield's a great quarterback, and a lot of times many people's favorite for the Heisman Trophy, but he also tried to run from the police back over the summertime, Big C. They got him. He couldn't claim it was artificial intelligence. He's just going to say lack of intelligence when he did it, but it didn't stop him from getting some awards. I think he's been given the Walter Camp Award and also the Associated Press Award for one of the better players, Big C. Your thoughts on Baker Mayfield?
Well, yeah, Charlton, he has one of those awards for the top offensive player in the country, Charlton, and he's very fortunate he wasn't a black athlete trying to run for police officers. Especially in Oklahoma, we've seen some of the incidents where African Americans have lost their lives because police have felt in fear that they were going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But, you look at him, and there's always going to be a character issue.
Yeah.
With Baker Mayfield, you think about the antics that he has proven, and we've seen this. This has been a history of the University of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The thing that I look about it is how media deals with it, Charlton.
Yeah.
We look at the backlash that Joe Mixon took.
Yeah.
While he was in Oklahoma through the media, lambasting him.
Yeah.
On character and the type of person that he was.
Yeah.
But we've had Baker Mayfield do probably even more egregious acts. In technically assaulting police officers, driving intoxicated, endangering private citizens. We look at his crotch-grabbing scenario, against the University of Kansas.
Yeah.
The profanities that are spewed. He has done a lot of questionable things.
Yeah.
But he has not been lambasted through the media. They said, well, maybe he has some character flaws. They haven't said that he lacks character, Charlton.
No,
they just say he has flaws.
Yeah.
But when the African-American athlete was put under the same microscope at the same university just a year ago, people questioned and protested, should he even be drafted?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Should he even be drafted? Should he even be allowed an opportunity to earn a living?
Yeah.
No one is talking about Baker Mayfield in that light, Salton. So I see the media, the people who do what we do, talking about athletes, being biased, in perspective to race, as far as how they look at crimes committed by these collegiate athletes.
Now I want to bring this up because I think it's a very salient issue. I know the Ball brothers decided they have an agent and I think they signed to go play basketball in Europe. The Ball dad said he's going to pull his kid out of UCLA. So they just signed recently to go with some sports agent and they're going to take their talents over to Europe, okay? And I wish them the best. But I do have to bring this up. I remember the Ball kid, and there were two other athletes when UCLA and Georgia Tech were over in China, and they were accused of shoplifting, stealing some merchandise, some glasses, etc. But none of them were charged with obstruction of justice. Now, I think a lot of people don't want to touch this angle, but it's a fact. You could Google it. Baker Mayfield was also arrested. Okay, he was arrested. He was not expelled from Oklahoma. He was not threatened with any type of jail time, but he was arrested and he was obstructing because he was chased down by police, and them good boys had it on camera. The stuff that happened with the kids at UCLA, that was not on camera. So now we're talking about how to do the right thing for kids. How do we set an example, okay? So you have Baker Mayfield who's chased on camera by police officers trying to get away. And he's now rewarded by being given the Walter Camp Award and the Player of the Year Award by the Associated Press. But everyone wants to take the kid at UCLA and kick them and expel them out of UCLA. Is it just me, or do I see different way of punishment, Big C? They didn't run from the police, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, this is what we've addressed from the start. There's a double-tier standard as far as how the media looks in retrospective to African-American athletes and white athletes. I mean, that's an honest question. Why do they not address that issue? Baker Mayfield will walk away with all off-season hardware, Charlton, in college football. Walter Camp, Player of the Year, Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
But here's a guy who committed crimes in the off-season.
Yeah.
And no one is saying that, he should not be up. He was not suspended for any games, Charlton. The only game he was suspended for was one series. For grabbing his crotch and using profanity on television.
Yeah.
We look at the actions that he did at Ohio State, going and slamming the flag at center field after the game. In the spirit of college athletics, you go shake hands and get off the field.
Yep.
You don't go and showboat at somebody's midfield with your flag, Charles.
Exactly.
You know, that's an egregious act as far as sportsmanship.
Yeah.
You know, and what you did talking about obstruction of justice, running from the police. Not only that, Charles, he was intoxicated in public at the time when he did it.
Yeah.
So that both of those are felonies.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not misdemeanors. Both of those are felonies.
Now,
and he wasn't charged in either one of those charges.
No.
But, you know, he's getting a pass and saying, well, you know, he had some misjudgment.
Yeah.
No, Charles, he committed criminal acts. And like I said, in Oklahoma, there's several cases where African-American men have been shot and killed
by
law enforcement in that state, in that general area where Baker Mayfield was.
Yeah.
Not assaulting police, but running like Baker Mayfield did.
Yeah. And so when I hear, and I'm guilty of this too, because I said that the ball father was an idiot for being a knucklehead, and maybe he is an idiot. However,
he is an idiot. You know, you think about it, here it is, he's extorting his kids. Yeah. Every time you turn around, but the media's just as big a fool as he is.
Yep.
I mean, stupid follows stupid.
Well,
this guy, every chance he gets, you put him on television for what, Charlton? Think about the number of great athletes out in America that never get any publicity, that don't even get a chance to play. He basically destroyed his kid's life there by taking them outside with an agent. None of them are good enough, Charlton, to play college pro basketball. The one couldn't even play on the college team. He was just on the team, all right?
Well, but
the one that's in the NBA is just barely struggling to survive. He just happened to be the number 2 overall pick.
Right.
He'll never be a great player. But this dad has destroyed his kid's livelihood trying to promote himself.
Well, I will take the opposite side of the fence on that, because I agree that he's been a knucklehead. At the same time, when I look at words, when he said there's no big deal, and maybe he saw that Baker Mayfield tape where he was running from police officers, and they tackled him down, and they handcuffed him, and next thing you know, he sees him on TV playing football for the University of Oklahoma. So maybe he said it's no big deal when you run from police. I mean, I just got to look at that, too, from his angle, because not everybody watches everything that happens. But when I look at Baker Mayfield...
Go to court in Los Angeles as an African-American and say it's no big deal. Okay?
Oh, yeah, I understand.
That's what you have to do when you want to look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Just because he has, gained a little media attention, really none of it has been good. Here it is, you take a kid you have in high school, out of high school, and sign him with an agent.
Yeah.
And he's a basketball player.
Yeah.
And you're going to say that he's one of the elitist players in the world while he's in high school and he can afford to sign with an agent. He can never play a high school game again, Charlton.
Yeah.
He can never play a pro game again. So think about how long it's going to be before he plays a competitive game. You got to look at it from this young man's perspective, from the kid's perspective. I lose all of what I have in my childhood now.
Yeah.
Because my dad wants to make money off me. This is the pimping of your children, Charlton.
Well,
I'm honest about that. You got to stop exploiting kids. It's bad enough. You and I talk about universities exploiting kids all the time, making billions of dollars off of them every year, and they don't get a dime.
Yep.
How much of that check is going to be cut in these kids' names? Because be honest. Who's the one that can make the money? The kid.
Yeah.
Okay? That's why the oldest son separated himself from his dad.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
He didn't bother dealing with the dad's shoe company. He went and signed with another shoe company that was real.
Well, let me
deliver the product and the check.
But let me ask you this question, because I think it's bigger than that's just one person. But here you have, I know Steve Alford wanted to discipline the kids at UCLA, and that happened. But I want to bring it back to Oklahoma, because I don't see the Walter Camp Award going to these kids that broke the law. In China.
Who votes on it? Who votes on the Walter Camp Award? How many blacks are voting on the Walter Camp Award? How many blacks in the media have a vote for anything in the Heisman or whatever? Yes, so Heisman Trophy winners have a vote, but be realistic. This is a misogynistic, platform of what they're doing. They're going out to tell you that this guy is a better character person than what they say he is. You think about all the lambasting that Cam Newton took several years ago when he was up for the Heisman. People wanted to talk about him allegedly stealing a laptop when he was at the University of Florida some 4 years previous to that, okay?
Yeah.
That's all they can talk about, an incident that didn't go out and physically harm somebody or put somebody's life at risk.
So
here's Baker Mayfield. You don't hear anything about it.
No, there's nothing.
Who the hell controls the media, Charlton?
And see, that's the thing I want to bring up, too, because I look at the hypocrisy and punishment. I mean, there are a lot of ignorant people that don't read, so they have no idea what we're talking about. But they can Google Baker Mayfield and his arrest when he's running for police officers. So now you have college football, the paragon of virtue, where men can enjoy college, right? They're going to march this kid into New York City, and they're going to present him the highest honor for a college athlete, which is the Heisman Trophy, okay? They can have all of the other great Heisman Trophy winners and runners-up that are going to be in New York City. But at the same time, if we're going to be honest about it, there are a lot of kids who are punished all over this country playing NCAA football and basketball and baseball, and they're punished for doing something wrong. So how does the NCAA, they openly bring up Baker Mayfield? They want to present to him the Heisman Trophy as if those police tapes don't exist of him running from law enforcement, which is called obstruction of justice. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, character only exists in one side of the race in athletics, okay? Period. You can have characters. We've seen this with NFL quarterbacks accused of rape, okay?
Yeah.
Sexual assault.
Yeah.
And they're still playing today in the league. And nothing was ever happening. They were never suspended by the league, Charlton. They were never fined by the league. This is just another scenario then. Think how many white quarterbacks have had DUIs over the years, Charlton.
Yeah.
And various other incidents. We think about a white owner in the NFL, Charlton, being caught with $27,000 of Oxycontin in his car and impaired when the police pulled him over.
Yeah.
So he gets a 6-month slap on the hand. Oh, you can't be around the team for 6 months. Hell, it was all season.
Yeah.
He got arrested in March. I can't remember last time the NFL was playing football in March.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So he laughed at that. He got a $500,000 fine. Wow. You know, he makes $800 million a year from the NFL, so $500,000, ooh, that really hurt him.
Yeah.
So let's be honest on justice. Justice, this is what Colin Kaepernick talked about. Social injustice. You know, not just social injustice, Charlton, but, you know, legal injustice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all the way there. Baker Mayfield should not be allowed to stand up for any college award.
I agree.
He should not have been allowed to play, Charlton. I go back to Dez Bryant, the wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, when he was at Oklahoma State.
Okay? Yep.
Same state. Went to Deion Sanders' house, had dinner.
Yeah.
There was an agent there, allegedly, okay? Allegedly. No one knows unless there was a camera in the house and somebody was out there spying for TMZ or whatever.
They were probably spying, yep.
But he lost his college eligibility about a decade ago, okay?
Yeah.
He lost his college eligibility less than a decade ago. Baker Mayfield in the same state, DUI, okay?
Yeah.
Grabbing his crotch on the sideline during the game, live broadcast, using profanity where you got to cover his mouth on the replays so you don't show the fans what he's saying.
Yeah.
But this is a high-integrity individual, Charlton.
Yeah.
A high-integrity individual. He showboats on Ohio State after a victory.
Yeah.
You know, but this is what you want as a representative of American athletics, Charlton, college athletics. This is what you call the face of college athletics. Now, I go back and think, if this was an African-American, Charlton, athlete doing these things, what would have happened? He would have been expelled from school, Charlton. We don't want this type of player around. This is not what our program represents.
Yeah.
It would have been that he made an honest mistake, Charlton. Baker Mayfield is a grown man.
Yeah.
He is not a 19, 18-year-old freshman. He's 22 years old.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
He is a legal adult for the past couple of years.
And so
he did an adult action, and he got a childhood sentence.
Well, see, and I think that's when I look at young people that come up to me and say, so why is the double standard then? Because mainstream media has to see this. They can't say they can't see it. No matter what network you're on, you can Google it, okay? For players who are punished and lose a scholarship, usually for taking a free steak dinner or some, whatever it is, but obstruction of justice is what happened when he was handcuffed running from police officers. I think people can Google that and just ask, does the award matter? I mean, do we have no character anymore assigned to it? I do want to look at some other things.
Charlton, where did he get the new vehicle from that he was driving?
I don't recall. He's like the session. I don't recall, Big C.
and one other thing.
Yeah.
There's no report of a breathalyzer or blood alcohol test done on him at night, Charlton.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you have a lot of young black kids that are calling for criminal justice reform, so they're not being chased down like Baker Mayfield was, but he ended up okay. A lot of guys don't end up as fortunate, and that's a fact, and that's what I think about Colin Kaepernick.
They don't end up alive.
Think about Trayvon Martin. Yeah, you think about that because it really happens, and I know people can see it, but to give this guy an award for that just doesn't make any sense at all. I want to look at the scope of college football. I look at Mike Riley in the coaching carousel. You know, he was a great coach at Oregon State, had the Beavers flying high, and then he went to greener pastures in Nebraska and coached the Cornhuskers. Didn't win like Tom Osborne did, so they got rid of him. And now I think he's back at Oregon State as a co-head coach, Big C. I always thought he was a good coach, but his system doesn't fit for playing when it's 25 degrees and snowing in the Midwest, Big C. It's a little bit easier to work when you have a passing game on the West Coast. Your thoughts?
Talking a unique title coming back where he was all-time winningest coach in Oregon State history.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad move for the program because they lost their head coach. He resigned after 3 games, I believe, into the season last year.
Yeah.
So him coming back to familiar territory, Charlton, familiar recruiting grounds, a conference that he's been competitive in for a decade, it's not a bad move. When we look at going out hiring coaches, what's the temperature of bringing somebody in?
Yeah.
You got to bring somebody in who has to build a program. Mike hasn't been gone that long. You think about it, there's going to be seniors on the roster that he recruited.
Yeah.
To Oregon State. So there's going to be some familiarity there with faces and names.
Yeah.
But, it's a good move for that program to bring somebody back in-house who's been there.
Yep.
And you look around the country, that's been done before. Nebraska's done it before. Other programs have done it before, Charlton. But this is a good move for Oregon State when you think about the coaching strength that's going to be in the back next year, Charlton.
Yep.
There's one position left to be filled, and that's at Oregon. The cross-state rival from Oregon State.
Yeah. I tell you what, Big C, I think it's a good deal for him. But also in that same state, think about Oregon, how great it is with money. You have Phil Knight has pumped a lot of money into the University of Oregon. They have one of the best facilities in all of college football, not just in the Pac-12 conference. And they're also looking for a head coach. Just give me your thoughts on could they find a way to get Leach, who wound up in the Palouse at Washington State, to come down to Oregon, where they have an embarrassment of riches. Also, there's a guy by the name of Jeff Tedford at Fresno State, his alma mater, that turned the Bulldogs around. But also a name that goes conspicuously absent is Ken Norton Jr., who's helped with Pete Carroll at USC win national championships. He has a Super Bowl experience with the Seattle Seahawks. Came to the Raiders, helped them go to the playoffs last year for the first time in 13 years and still lost his job. Would there be any consideration for a guy that played in the Pac-12 at UCLA to go up to Oregon and bring some of that LA talent in the University of Oregon? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the hardest move is to bring somebody from the professional ranks to the collegiate ranks. I think Arizona State had a stretch with Herm Edwards.
Yeah.
I like to see him back in the game, but I think he may be far removed just far as that social understanding of the young athlete.
Yeah.
Things have changed a lot since Herm was in the game. I mean, he's 69 years old.
Yeah.
It's hard to come and communicate with a 19-year-old when there's a 40-year, 50-year age difference, Charlton, between you. And, I like Mike Leach because you got to look at the quarterback at Oregon. He's just a freshman, okay?
Yeah.
And he was one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, but he got hurt.
Yeah.
You think about his first couple of games of the year, and you're like, wow, Oregon's going to be something. They were 3-0, I believe it was. He went down. All of a sudden, the wheels came off the program, and he was just a freshman.
Yeah.
You think about how Mike Leach has developed quarterbacks. You look at Falk, the kid he had at Washington State the past years.
Yeah.
Set all the records in the Pac-12 conference. So this is a kid that, will have a decent pro career. You think about Jeff Tedford, who turned around this program at Fresno State, his alma mater. You think of what he did at Cal, having #1 draft picks in the NFL. He coached Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
At Cal, as well as I believe a kid, Brolin or something like that.
Yeah.
Who was the #1 draft
Kyle
pick.
Buller.
Kyle Buller, #1 draft pick of the Ravens. Marshawn Lynch was another one of his proteges, Charlton.
Yeah.
So Jeff Tedford knows some offense. And so he knows how to coach. And you think about this quick turnaround he did at Fresno State. What did he do? Win 1 or 2 games a year?
One game last year to the conference championship this year.
Yeah, and so they turned it around with an 8-game plus. You know? And so when you think about that, and they both have the West Coast ties now, Charlton.
Yeah.
That would be a very smart move. I think Tedford would be the best. He has spent some time up at the University of Oregon in the past. So.
Yeah.
As an assistant coach under Mike Bellotti.
Yeah.
Before going to Cal.
Yeah, so, that's right.
He has familiarity with that region.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm Oregon and I want instant success, I would get Tedford.
Yeah.
If I want a coach with a media presence, then you go to Leach. But Tedford, I think, would be the better fit of the two.
Yeah.
And he would get Oregon back to where they were when they had, your boy who just signed with UCLA.
Yeah.
Down there.
Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly's down there chipping away. But I think it would be sad for Fresno State to have their homegrown kid come back and lead the Bulldogs back to national ranking number 25th in the country. But you brought up a point. He coached the great Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. He also coached beast mode Marshawn Lynch over at Cal Berkeley. have them ranked at number 1 in the country at one time. He had Kyle Bowler come through there out of Hart High School in Southern California. All he's done is win. I mean, everywhere he's gone, he's won. He went to Cal Berkeley, had them winning, and then some good old boys made it difficult on him to have more power, and so he found himself exiting out of Cal Berkeley. But he knows how to recruit, and if you can imagine, Fresno State is a good program, but it's not on the same level as Pac-12 schools like Oregon. And when you come in under Phil Knight's ring, when you have all of that money, what does money do for you good old boys down south, Big C? How much moonshine can you guys produce when you got more cash flow, Big C? Is that a big thing?
Well, it gives us better camouflage when we're out honey talking. We can blend in with the man.
What does Smokey and the Bandit do? Who was that? Buford T. Justice, when he had more money with those good old boys? They had more police cars they could go to round up them good old boys for moonshining. But I look at the money that you have at Oregon. And I don't want to see Teffert leave because he's built that program back at Fresno. But it would make no sense at all if they forgot his phone number because all he's done is win. And he's won in the Pac-12, Big C. That's why I think he'd be a big coach that would go to that program in Oregon as well as Leach. I do want to bring up another thing about some of the coaching going on in the country. I think Tennessee, down in your neck of the woods, them good old boys, they hired another Alabama assistant in Pruitt. There's something about Nick Saban, whether it's a Kirby Smart or a Jimbo Fisher or Will Muschamp, there's something about the tutelage of being under the good old boy from Alabama, under Saban, that these guys go on and win other programs, Big C. Just give me your thoughts on how much that may help Tennessee bringing on one of Nick Saban's guys.
Well, Charlton, 2 of those guys have played for have won national championships, okay?
Yeah.
They've been in the run. Kirby Smart is in the national championship carousel. You didn't even mention Lane Kiffin, who went down and turned around 40 international this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, there's something to be said about having a stable environment that you come from. Jeremy Pruitt is going to go to Tennessee. I don't know how stable the environment is that Tennessee has.
Yeah.
You got to think about Dooley ran that program into the ground a couple of years ago when they hired him out of Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
And Butch Davis just could not get over the hump. Butch wasn't a bad coach, but it's just the conference when you walk into that. You got to have a certain mindset. Yeah. He has 3 solid young quarterbacks there in Tennessee that can play football.
Yep.
But you're bringing in a defensive coordinator again, Charlton. That sometimes is the problem. Kirby Smart had some tremendous talent when he got to Georgia. They weren't at the basement.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Tennessee is at the basement. So it's hard to get people out of the basement when they don't know how to open the door. So that's going to be his biggest challenge, Charlton.
Wait, Big C, let me ask you a question. Why would you good old boys put somebody in the basement and not let them not have a door handle, Big C? Is that some insider information from the good old South, Big C?
Well, Charlton, sometimes secrets you want to keep, okay?
Southern Justice, right? Southern Justice.
but this is one of those scenarios when you look at Tennessee. I don't even know if they know how to win anymore.
Yeah.
Because this program has gone down for so long, and this is not going to be a scenario like you had when you spoke about Tedford out at Fresno State, going from 1 win to 9 wins that following year. You got a tough conference. You got 5 teams that you have to play within your conference that will beat you every year.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at in the SEC. And Tennessee has been beat up. And so the mindset of bringing in this guy, he will come in after the bowl season is over for Alabama.
Yep.
So he's got to get a late start putting together his staff as well as getting to know the players on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
But, there's always high hopes. You come in, you got to give him 2 or 3 years. I'm just sad that, he's only been off the defensive coordinator for Alabama for 2 years, okay?
Yeah.
But they said he's more ready than T. Martin, who's been the offensive coordinator at USC, and knows how to have a high-powered offense. He had a quarterback that was up for Heisman consideration.
Yeah.
Tennessee has been a long time since Peyton Manning played there and was up for Heisman consideration. To have a quarterback and a head coach that knows how to coach offense, and that's what you need in the SEC. Everybody plays defense. But if you're not scoring points, Charlton, I don't care how good your defense is.
Yep. That's a good point, Big C. I want to ask you another question. And so Big C, I want to ask you another question when you think about that. And I think that the good old boy down there at USC, Darnold, is going to stick around for at least the junior season. And I know he follows Big C Sports because we're the only ones saying come back even when the season began. Not even heard your friend Kuiper saying, well, he needs 1 more year. That same Kuiper Mache, they were saying he's a can't-miss first round draft pick when the season began. And you guys can Google that too. Big C Sports is the real deal. I want to just say, I'm glad that he's thinking about coming back. because by coming back, you get the extra coaching, the extra tutelage, so you don't go to the NFL and become a bust. And the kid has talent, but I do want to say T. Martin's the one who helped groom him, but he's not getting any credit. One more thing I want to follow up on the world of college sports, and you talked about the Army-Navy game and how we have these men who not only serve our country, but they're excellent student athletes. And I don't think any of them are running from the police officers and being on tape doing it and then giving the Heisman Trophy or the Walter Camp Award the way Baker Mayfield did. It goes back to the days of Oklahoma, Barry Switzer. When Barry Switzer was coaching Oklahoma, they had some great teams, some great athletes, but they had this one guy that stands out over all of them by the name of Brian Bosworth, which was great for the University of Oklahoma. Even though they hated his antics on the field, he still had the chance to play in the NFL, but I don't believe that Bosworth was ever arrested on camera the way Mayfield has been, and they still hold him up as the best example that college football has to reward. Now contrast that with the Army-Navy, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you talk about integrity, of the utmost when you look at Army-Navy,
yep.
Charlton. These are quality young men who go out there and participate in the true spirit of college athletics. There will never be any allegations of pay or cheating with the Army-Navy players, Charlton.
No.
These guys go to class, they don't skip, they carry a full load, Charlton, a full academic load. They graduate. When you talk about graduation rate, Charlton, there's 3 schools in the United States that graduation rate, Charlton, is in the high 90s.
Yeah.
Okay? There's Army, that's Navy, and Air Force.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
They have academic standards as well as the University of Stanford does, Charlton.
Yeah.
That you have to be accepted into these academies. And academics is the foremost, Charlton. When you look at these players, Charlton, they don't have aspirations, even though some do get a chance to play professional athletics.
Yeah.
But that's not their cause for going to school.
Yeah.
Their cause for going to school is to better themselves as human beings.
Yeah.
And they have a total opposite mentality of that of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
When you think about that, he couldn't have qualified to play at any of these fine institutions, Charlton.
No.
He had a chip on his shoulder from the start when he walked on at Texas Tech several years ago.
Yeah.
And then he got kicked out of there and had to transfer. That's the thing about it. He got dismissed from a school before already.
It's no big deal. It's no big deal.
Dismissed. So he had these character flaws when he had to walk on. Nobody was recruiting.
Yep.
He had a chip on his shoulder. He got kicked out of that university, Charlton, and he ended up in Oklahoma. They took him in.
Yeah.
And they've been known to take in some character issue players over the past, Charlton, under Bob Stoops' regime.
Yeah.
And even under Barry Switzer.
Yeah.
But, to have the actions that he's had, Charlton, off the field and even on the field, and to be held in such high acclaim and esteem throughout the media outlets, I would like to see of the players up there on that Heisman Award on Saturday or whenever they're going to present it, Charlton.
Yeah.
How many of them were arrested when they were in college?
Wow.
I would like for them to let's have a show of hands, guys, before we present this award. How many of you were arrested while you were in college?
Wow.
That's the integrity of the Heisman Trophy that's not being put out there in the forefront.
Yeah.
Is that you're bringing a guy in that has a checkered past and you're putting him into the most elite of college fraternities that there is, Charlton.
But they want to suspend the Ball brothers for being also doing something wrong. I do want to bring up, as far as sports, and I want to say that sports is a $1 billion industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this $1 billion industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, and they cover pro teams, collegiate teams, your high school teams, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. And when you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. Call 800-877-8624. That's 800-877-8624. That's 800-877-8624. Big C, I look at the world, and the world's a crazy world, but it's real talk, so we got to talk about it. I know Goodell gets his $200 million, and so congratulations to him. I know he needs all that money because the cost of living's going up, Big C, and Trump's going to cut his taxes, so he's really going to appreciate that money. But I recall just last year in the NBA, your good friend James Dolan, the owner of the New York Knicks. I know you haven't been kicked out of Madison Square Garden the way they kicked out that good old boy Charles Oakley. But I have some good people that tell me that do some work with the New York Times. Would you believe that Dolan was owner of the New York Knicks? He's also he's a defendant in the civil lawsuit filed against producer of Hollywood Harvey Weinstein. That same boy Dolan that had Oakley kicked out of Madison Square Garden, He's named as a defendant in a lawsuit with Harvey Weinstein by 6 women by a federal court in Manhattan. That same good old boy knew of the sexual harassment going on, did nothing to get rid of Weinstein, but he throws Oakley out for being, I guess, too loud. Big C, your thoughts?
What you mean, did nothing to get rid of Weinstein? Charlton, he participated. How can you get rid of the guy you participated with?
Yeah.
That's like saying R. Kelly left the closet unlocked, okay?
yeah, that's true.
Same type of scenario. It's them trapped in the closet.
Yeah.
But, he is Dolan as well as another NBA owner, Charlton, of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
These guys are alleged accomplices of Weinstein.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Defendant were alleged accomplices, NBA owners.
Yeah.
Now here it is. You had your guy down in L.A., the Clippers owner, former owner, having to get rid of his franchise for making racially,
insensitive remarks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here are guys that accuse alleged accomplices in sexual assault and misconduct that are NBA owners.
Yep.
How will Adam Silver react to this, Charlton?
Wow.
If this trial takes place, is Dolan finally going to have to sell the Knicks? Is the owner finally going to have to sell the Bucks? And if the Bucks don't, they're going to Seattle. They'll be moving to Seattle because they're seeking out a franchise just to clean that slate, period.
Yeah.
But James Dolan needs to go from the NBA. I mean, if you can get rid of your former owner of the Clippers, and his name eludes me at the moment, Charlton.
Yeah.
CTE kills me all the time.
Yeah, it's okay.
Here's this guy.
Sterling. Is
Donald Sterling.
Yeah.
In the biggest city in the United States, okay?
Yeah.
And he's an alleged accomplice. We're not talking about just a witness, and he is a witness because he was there.
Yeah.
But, an alleged accomplice of Harvey Weinstein. And here it is, he's walking around free. He could have Charles Oakley kicked out of the arena, but that's the same thing that Sterling has did, Charlton.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't want these people in my place. And he didn't want those people such as Oakley at his place, at his games. Okay?
Well, the scandal is really deep because you look at Weinstein, he's been accused of sexual harassment by more than 80 women. Okay, 80, just about 50 more than Donald Trump has. 80 women. And for his predatory behavior, and Hollywood has known about this for decades. And I look at some of the women who are coming out now, and I'm so proud.
Those 80 are just the ones who are working.
The ones who are working.
About the ones who didn't get a chance to work.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And so this is for all the men out there that think it's okay to do what these guys are doing, because there's a lot more that are shaking in their boots too, because a lot of women are more bold now, and they're going to come out and tell. If you have a daughter, I know some people don't care about their wives or their mothers, but at least you care about your daughter if you have one. And imagine her having to go work for Weinstein or work for that good old boy James Dolan at Madison Square Garden for the Knicks. Imagine that is it Mark Lasseter, I believe, owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. Imagine having to go work for these men. Now, we're in a world where Colin Kaepernick cannot get a job because he stood up for inequality, people who are oppressed financially and socially and politically. And he wants to bring attention to the criminal justice system. And you can't get a job in the NFL because people don't want to hear that, all right? But you got men that run professional sports teams that are part of the sexual harassment job, and they have jobs and own teams. We just brought up the story about that good old boy Mayfield being arrested and running from police officers in the NCAA that will not pay their players, but they'll take the $100 million contracts that come collectively from this free labor, and they're going to hold them up as a paragon of this is the best we have to offer, the very best. So when the next young kid gets in trouble, how are you going to say don't do it when they award guys for getting in trouble? Now you have the NBA, and you have these owners who kick guys out of a building for being too loud, and they're caught up in something that's so heinous, and no one's coming after them yet, Big C, outside of Weinstein. But I think that ball's going to drop on Dolan pretty soon. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that flow they call ebb and flow.
Yeah.
That momentum will catch up with them. You can only run so far in New York, then the buildings get in your way.
Yep.
Okay, but if you accuse at this level, okay, then you had some culpability in this.
Yeah.
This is just like the Larry Nassar, the former doctor for Michigan State, gymnastics and the U.S. Olympic female team.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
He was sentenced today, Charlton, to the maximum sentence for possessing child pornography, 60 years.
Wow.
All right? And that wasn't enough time, so he's going to spend the rest of his life because he's 56 years old. in prison.
Yeah.
But the most appalling part, Charlton, I find about what happened, and he's still going to be sentenced on 2 others, okay?
Yeah.
2 other charges. That's yet to come. Is his original claim against him, Charlton, came from a female African-American athlete. No one would listen to her.
They didn't believe her.
No one.
No. And now you have this. I mean, to me, it's kind of shocking because I don't even want to be shocked anymore. We know that Donald Trump, our president, has set the precedent for not being punished for lewd acts against women. We already know that. And what they're trying to do with more, I mean, for people who are dumb, I don't expect they're going to listen. But for people who read and have any decency and really want to protect your daughters, it's not about some other woman. There was a guy named Matthew McConaughey in the movie, and he had Sam Jackson. And it was based on the South, and they had some good old boys that had roughed up this young girl and did all kind of horrible things, and they had it in front of an all-white jury.
A Day in the Sun. A Day in the Sun. A Time to Kill.
A Time to Kill.
Kevin Spacey, who's admitted to being a molester also of young boys.
Oh, my God, of all people. And I remember Matthew McConaughey, because he knew the white jury were going to acquit this white guys, right? And he said, just imagine if the girl was white. And just because people think that that's way back in the day, there's still a lot of people who behave that way, and they still think that way. And I don't know what it's going to take to fix our society, but I do know that we got to find a way to protect our young kids, especially the girls. The boys too, but boys can take care of themselves a little bit better, but that's no excuse. We got to protect people. But when you have all of this power, and I still think of the fact that Colin Kaepernick can't get a job, and people have bought tickets for Madison Square Garden, and no one stayed away. And people keep saying, well, this guy's not standing for the troops. All these knuckleheads being accused of these crimes, they stood for the national anthem, Big C. They stood for it. In fact, what Colin Kaepernick did has called for awareness to protect the women who have been assaulted. That's even another feather in his cap, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when I look at all these politicians, especially the president, who has said that they've disrespected the flag, you're telling me that sexual assault and sexual misconduct is respecting the flag in America and respecting the military? We've seen how people in the military over the years have been kicked out. As a matter of fact, a lot of them President Obama had kicked out for sexual misconduct under his watch. Okay? That's not talked about anymore. Was that disrespecting the flag? Was that disrespecting the females that were in the military? The stuff where you were putting them on the internet, where you were, videotaping them, with hidden cameras and things like that. So when you talk about disrespecting the military and disrespecting the flag, Colin Kaepernick was not a part of those heinous events, Charlton.
No, none of them.
No one talks about that. These were white soldiers doing this, Charlton.
Yeah.
But they were respecting for us the perspective that we look at. Look at the president. How he's disrespected the flag. If you're disrespecting and sexually assaulting women in America, that is the greatest disrespect to the flag that you can ever have in this country. And also law enforcement, Charlton.
I think about that too, and I think about Matt Lauer. And there are no saints on the planet. But if you're starting to deal with kids, there's a different place for you, and I'm glad these guys are being told on, Big C. I want to cover a little bit more of what's going on in the world of the NBA. We know we have some NBA that's happening, and whether if you look at what Cleveland's done, I mean, even though they don't have a full lineup back yet, I think they're looking very strong in the East. And right now, their record right now for Cleveland is 17-7. I look at Washington at 13-11. Boston's 21-4 with the best win percentage in the NBA. In the Western Conference, Houston's 18-4. And slightly behind Boston in winning percentage, you have Denver 13-10 in the Northwest Division. In the Pacific Division, you have Golden State at 19-6. I know Curry still has that injured ankle, but I look forward to a lot of good NBA basketball being played, especially as we get into 2018. Just give me your thoughts if you have kind of any thought about what NBA team has impressed you the most so far, Big C, in the Eastern and Western Conference. Your thoughts?
Well Charlton, it's still, Cleveland and Boston. All roads go through Cleveland in the East. Those are the two teams that's talked about most consistently. I was impressed by Golden State last night with Kevin Durant taking over the game with Steph Curry being out. This is a team that doesn't lack leadership at any point.
Not at all.
You have Draymond Green, you have Klay Thompson, you have Curry, you have Durant. Any of these players, Charlton, on any night can go out and lead the team in scoring. And we saw that from Kevin Durant. He's always been a number one wherever he's played. But last night, it's showing that he's still an MVP caliber player. Even though the talk all the time now it centers around James and Harden. But Kevin Durant did something on the road last night knowing that they're going to be without Steph Curry till at least Christmas, Charlton.
Yeah.
That he has taken the role that he was expected of him when he came over as a free agent.
Yeah.
In dominating Charlotte. But when you look at the Western Conference, Charlton, I mean, Houston is right there with them.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some teams that can play. There's a lot of prominence on both sides. So, you know, the way things break down, when you look at the NBA, you know, you got the Celtics and Boston in the East.
Yep.
You got Golden State and Houston in the West.
Yeah.
And also, Kawhi Leonard, which will make his NBA debut tonight, Charlton. He hasn't played all year long with that ankle injury, and he's coming back for the Spurs. So look for them to get healthy, you know, sometime soon.
Yeah, and they're 16-8. Kawhi is going to make them a better team also. Big C, final story tonight in the NFL. I know we talked about how violent this league is and how much we love football, and I think back to the days of Dick Butkus and them good old boys and Rosie Greer and those guys that played, Deacon Jones, and it was a little bit different conversation when they played. I know we have CTE issues, and we just got to make the uniforms and the helmets safer, and I think they're doing that. Give me your thoughts on the NFC South, because we have two big games, two big teams. You have Atlanta, and they're really, I don't really know what to say about Atlanta. They're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team, and they're at home. Don't seem to have the home field advantage, even though they have a beautiful stadium in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But you have the Saints coming in there with Drew Brees, and they're competing for the championship of the NFC South, along with Carolina. Maybe the toughest division in football. Just give me your thoughts on the Saints going to Atlanta tonight. Your thoughts, Big C.
Well, Charlton, you talk about a team in desperation mode. That's the Atlanta Falcons tonight. This is the team that represented the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
But right now, they're in third place in their own division.
Yep.
You know, they're trailing the Saints as well as the Panthers, Charlton. And if they fall to the wayside by the Saints tonight, Charlton, they have no chance of winning this division because they even have to play them one more time.
Yeah.
But this is a team, as you said, it's been Jekyll and Hyde. They've been inconsistent. They were inconsistent last year.
Yeah.
And you know, last week, you know, they had no consistency offensively. This is a team that couldn't even score a touchdown.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is what it comes down to. And the Saints are playing great defense. They're hoping to have their full complement of defensive backs tonight.
Yep.
In the starting lineup. Their running game is what's really surprised everybody with the Saints. We know that Devontae Freeman is coming back off a concussion. He played some last week. He should be back up to full speed this week.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen the same Falcon defense that we saw 3 weeks ago against the Cowboys, Charlton.
Yeah.
I think after that game high, you know, they took a low and said, hey, you know, we can ride on that. And not in the NFL. This is every week producing.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to a situation today where NFL players are talking about the penalties that are coming, you know, from these hits.
Yeah.
It's easy to come down with a microscope and go back at a replay and break down a play frame by frame when a player gets hit, Charlton, a receiver, a running back, and fine or suspend the player.
Yeah.
But when you take off initially after a player, Charlton, and if that player adjusts his body, Charlton, you don't know where he's going to end up. He may come in lower than what you targeted. You may want to go to hit him low, and all of a sudden, the quarterback has thrown a bad pass that he had to extend himself for.
Yeah.
You've already made your commitment as a defensive player. That's like when you send that dog out to hunt. He's already made his commitment. So there's no need blowing whistles and come back. You know, I'll be back once I get the target. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the same scenario. So, but when we go back in football, you look at everything now through a replay.
Yeah.
Instead of real time, whether it's a catch, whether it's a fumble, whether it's a recovery, Charlton, whether it's, you know, a hit. You can't do that. Football can't be played in microseconds, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you break it down frame by frame.
Yeah.
I think about the violence in the trenches every play.
Yeah.
So when you think about a pulling guard or a tight end coming down on a down block.
Yep.
You know, when they use him on a trap. Is he not hitting a defenseless player, Charlton, in the side of the helmet or cutting him? So, I mean, that double standard is in football. If you're going to make every position on the field a defenseless player, Charlton, you have to protect linemen. They have more leg injuries, Charlton, and more head injuries than anybody else in football.
Yeah.
And when those are dangerous plays, when you have a trap block, and it's always been in football.
Yeah.
When you have that pulling guard, and now you got pulling tackles because they're so fast they can get to that spot.
Yeah.
And they also use these tight ends coming in motion on a trap block.
Yeah.
Kicking out an end or a tackle. No one is talking about hitting a defenseless player when you hit a lineman.
Yeah.
They say because of size. You know, that goes back to that Shaq theory.
Yeah.
And LeBron theory. Well, they're much bigger and stronger than everybody else. Charlton, the brain in the human body is the brain in the human body.
Yeah.
If you're going to protect one position, you got to protect them all. Now we're talking about eliminating contact, period. You got to have to go back to the leather helmets in football. If you really want to protect players, you have to go back to the leather football and eliminate this hard plastic helmet, that it can be used as a weapon.
Well, now, and I know we've done the research on football, because if you're going to play a pro ball, you've already played college ball. If you're playing college ball, chances are you already played a high school ball at a higher level. If I contrast what's going on with athletes that have the CTE, have we had the same medical research study of boxing? There's a lot of boxing where we talk about what happened with Muhammad Ali being taking too many punches. Well, look at the role of the MMA and the UFC. You have guys that don't have any type of head equipment. They go in there with basically small 4-ounce gloves, and they kick. They punch to the head. I think you can do everything but hit to the back of the head. Are we going to come to a...
do that, Charlton.
Yeah, they do that. So how do we contrast saying football with the helmet is more violent than MMA that has, you can kick to the head, you can punch the elbow to the head, but we don't have the same issue about that. Is it because it's kind of a new sport? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, everybody knows the violence. Boxing is not a new sport, Charlton. If you go back and you look at that group of boxers that were in the 84 Olympics, okay?
Yeah.
Look at that group of boxers that was in LA that summer. And look how many of those boxers, Charlton, have suffered brain injuries.
Wow.
And even go back to they have. I mean, there's a group of them that have suffered serious brain injuries.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about medical technology and boxing and boxers being hit, even Muhammad Ali late in his career, people knew that he was suffering from having too many blows thrown to the head, Charlton, because he couldn't defend himself like he could when he was a young man.
Yeah.
And Mike Tyson put plenty of boxers in that position when he was at his heyday, Charlton, because he was out there with vicious intent every time that he fought.
Yeah.
But, a very violent sport. They didn't have any head protection, Charlton, and you look at some of these amateur boxers who have 100 fights before they can turn professional. No one is going in for concussion protocol. A boxer should go in for concussion protocol after every fight. He's been hit harder than any football player during any football game, Charlton.
Yeah.
And multiple times, because headshots accumulate.
Yeah.
But we don't look at it from that perspective. And I appreciate the attention that's been given to the NFL players, because there's many that have suffered over the decades, but the NFL is the culprit of it, Charlton.
Yeah.
They turned their back on all the scientific evidence that was presented. It's like the marijuana study.
Yeah.
Americans turned their back on all the scientific evidence to show that marijuana is not as harmful as opiates.
Yeah.
But who controls the opiates in America?
Yeah.
Corporate white America controls the Charlton.
Well,
and they said that marijuana came from the underworld, if you listen to the president.
Yeah.
It comes from farms.
That's something else. So when I think about it, I know we have a lot of football to be played coming up for the holidays. We're all talking about the bowl games and what team's going to go where. They've already been stationed and they've already been chosen. And there's a lot of issues behind how do we keep people safe. So I know science will make people safer, just like cars. The automobile today in 2017 is better built than cars that were built back in the 60s and 70s. So you don't get rid of the car because sometimes people get injured in it. You try to make it safer, and I hope that's going to be the thing they do with football on the high school. Think about the Pop Warner level, the high school, the college level, and especially the pro level. Big C, in final closing, do you think enough has been done to protect? We talk about the NFL, but are we doing enough to protect the high schools? We're starting the state football playoffs in California this weekend, and all the talk of the CTE has some parents kind of straddling the fence. Do we talk enough about what it takes to keep the high school players safe, or is it only an issue when it comes to the NFL? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, football first and foremost is a game of violence. I don't care how you look at it, how you address it. It's always been a game of violence. You can't clean it up if you're going to play the game. And there's always going to be these devastating injuries. When we look at Ryan Shazier, the linebacker of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who went through a spinal fusion operation today, and hopefully he'll regain the feeling and use of his legs. But he'll never play football again. This is not the issue about him playing football. And these are the type of injuries, Charlton, that they don't talk about. That has happened to many players other than Ryan Shazier, have been the spinal injuries. Okay? And you can't, he wasn't blindsided by anybody, Charlton.
No.
He was the one delivering the blow. Okay? And he did deliver it to an upper part of the player's body. He delivered it to a thigh. Is what happened. He hit to a thigh, Charlton, and that's how he sustained his injury. So what do? Now that it's not CTE, Charlton, it's a spinal injury. How do you react to that as a league? I mean, we've had plenty of players. I recall Mike Utley.
Yeah.
Back years ago, a guard with the Detroit Lions when he broke his neck during a game, Charles. And there's been many other players that have been paralyzed or semi-paralyzed from hits on the field, Charles, either delivering or taking them.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Years ago, Darryl Stingley was paralyzed by Jack Tatum in a preseason game.
I remember that. For New England, yeah.
And, you know, so these are always the things that are out there in the forefront of players' minds, but you don't think about it.
Yeah.
This is the game of violence. This is not basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about baseball. Look how many times players have been hit
Yeah.
in the face or in the head with a pitch.
Yeah.
Or even a throw. And now players are wearing face guards in baseball to protect their jaws that have been broken.
Yeah.
You can't find a pitcher for a pitch getting away.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's not an intentional act, but it happens.
It happens.
It's part of the sport.
Yeah.
Players have had concussions. They have lost their careers, Charles, being hit with baseball. You cannot take the violence out of sports. You can't.
Yeah.
Even in basketball, it's a very violent physical game. But football is the paradox of violence and boxing in professional sports. I mean, look at the NHL.
Yeah.
You have to address the NFL, Charlton, like the NHL addresses its players.
Yeah.
If a player goes down because of a hit by you, you have to miss as much time as he missed. If he's out 2 games on concussion protocol, Charlton, they're suspended for 2 weeks.
Well,
but it's that double standard. Look at Gronkowski's hit on Sunday.
Yeah.
That only warranted a 1-game suspension. That should have been 2 to 4, Charlton.
Yeah.
Without even batting an eye.
Yeah, it was malice and intent, and that's a lot of things that we think about. So with the high school state championships happening in California, all over the Golden State, they're also kicking off all over the country. And for the high school players, we want to make sure they stay safe, whether you're high school or college or professional athletes. You can't always make it safe, but you can try to make it safer. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bondini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always say, Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, even though I don't care that much about Thursday night football, we finally got a Thursday night football game of significance that means something in the final outcome of the season. A game that's being played as far as division position, Charlton, whether you win the division or even come in second in the division. So I'm looking for a great game in Atlanta tonight in that new Mercedes Dome.
Well, I hope them good old boys from New Orleans don't throw too many beads of that bird on the outside of that stadium. Is that bird a real bird or is it live? Is it live on Memorex? We shall find out, and you can find out every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow the Big C Sports Network on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any woman going through that garbage, please call 911 because no woman should have to deal with that garbage all on her own. And as we tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.